Hello and welcome. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different and special. This is a pop-up stream, so this is not a normally scheduled stream. We're going to be playing Shadow Empire. Specifically, we're actually going to be troubleshooting a Twitch chatters slash Reddit users save, and we're going to be evaluating what's going wrong in the save and what we can do to make it work better, both for them and for other people who are watching, following along. Particularly, they're reporting having problems with worker population happiness, and with them leaving the capital as a side effect of that. So let's load into the save. The way I stream this game doesn't show the pop-ups, so the file windows here don't pop up, but I'm able to easily get out to those. I can see them, so that works for me. We'll be loaded into the game pretty quickly. So this is their save. I did a little bit of evaluation before starting the stream. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up some good things that are going on in the save. Victory score wise, they are winning. So they're at 19.3 victory score out of the 50 or so they need to win. And honestly, if they played the diplomatic cards right, they could probably win within a couple turns. They maybe don't realize that. Most of the factions on this map appear to be Republican. Republicans are often willing to negotiate victory pacts, so if you played your bureaucratic cards right, revolving around diplomacy, you could probably negotiate a victory here. So even without fixing the problems that we're going to try and evaluate today, it is quite plausible that they could win within a couple turns if they knew what they were doing and had the patience, and wanted to win that way, honestly. Sometimes I make it a part of the challenge to not win via diplomacy, because it can be a bit easy. Or pick game settings where that's not viable because they're not Republican or whatever. Empire Dashboard, this is their game settings, so they're playing on beginner level. They were also noting difficulty with finding tax cards. They honestly have all the taxes they need. They got 20% income tax, they got 50% sales tax. Much more than that, I'm going to start having tax rights. At least in the case of the income tax. They're on beginner difficulty, which I think has given them a head start on that. Forget if that's a default of 20% income tax or if it's a default of 10% income tax, but it starts you with some income tax, so it's a little bit less important to find the income tax cards. They've been reporting difficulty finding them. They have the org for it. It's the Interior Council Taxation. And it's taxation, so they've actually got no bureaucracy points invested in it, which is probably why they're not finding the taxation cards. So if they were looking for the taxation cards, that's how you do that. So let's get into evaluating some of the problems. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the resource tab, and you're going to look at the resource tab, and you're going to be like, okay, looks pretty normal. This is a green map, so they're positive on water and food. That's not super surprising. Oil's positive, bullets are positive, metal's positive. There's not a healthy stockpile of it, but that just presumably means they're using it. Industry is really healthy. Everything's basically healthy. One thing that sticks out here, and that is that we are running a power deficit. Now, you might look at, on the first glance at that, go like, okay, we're gonna have a problem in turn and a half. No, we don't have a problem in turn and a half. We have a problem now. In Shadow Empire, your SHQ ships before receiving, and it can only ship what it has. So in this case, on the previous turn, they had 511 power. All 511 power went out the door. And only 311 came in. They're in brownout. They maybe don't recognize they're in brownout, but they're in brownout. And a lot of the symptoms they're actually describing are not necessarily symptoms of having work happiness problems. They're symptoms of brownout. They're suffering from brownout. They don't have the level of practice necessarily to realize they're in a brownout. Symptomatically, what a brownout will cause is you'll have a power shortage. Well, that will make all the buildings, and it depends on how your brownout's being caused, right? So one of the simplest ways it will happen is you've got a worker shortage. So your worker shortage causes a power shortage from your power plants. Well, what does that do? Well, that means all your buildings are going to need less workers because they don't have the power to work, right? Power in produces some product out the other end, right? So they're gonna fire down. Well, because effectively you now have a worker surplus because of the power shortage. The workers getting fired and combined with your worker surplus because of the power shortage means that your power plants are no longer going to have a worker shortage, which means they're going to make more power. Which means suddenly you have a massive demand for workers, which we're going to see in here, they don't necessarily have the ability to immediately fix. So they don't hire back up correctly, which causes there not to be enough workers at the power plant, which causes a power shortage, which causes a worker surplus, and it goes around and around and around in circles. And they're just seeing the levels fluctuate up and down, up and down. What that is actually is a brownout. They're suffering from a brownout. That the hiring and firing and the chaos and all is causing the symptoms of worker problems, worker happiness problems, but they're actually suffering primarily from a brownout. The first major problem here in this save is they're in a brownout. They maybe don't recognize it. And it's not necessarily easy to fix. That's not the only problem. Part of the problem, that's also why they're seeing happiness problems, is that in a lot of their cities, they're over-leveraged. So what I mean by that is they have more workers than they have civilian pops. Income on the civilian pops includes salaries spent in the zone. This means the wage per pop is going to go up proportional partially to salary spendage. This means if you have more workers than civilian pops, the civilian pop wages are going to rise probably about at the same rate as your worker pops, so salaries are going to rise. This means in the long run, you can't make your workers happy by paying them money. You can mitigate the making them unhappy. You can't make them happy. And you've got basically 3 major levers in the game to make your workers happy. You can pay them more than the civilians. You can keep the quality of life high in the city. Or you can provide housing in the city. So in this case, okay, their worker happiness is a little low. It's like 66. It's 50 plus. It's good enough. And in this case, it's trending up. It is actually trending up. It's 4 points minus 2 points. In practice, we'd probably want to fix the remuneration problem. We at this point realize, because it's overleveraged, probably don't want that to be positive. But we can make it not negative. So we can get 2 plus 2 minus 0 instead of 2 plus 2 minus 2. That will help a lot with happiness. Also fixing that problem. When you give them a raise, if it's raised towards where it should be, it provides a happiness, one-off happiness bonus. So we can fix the happiness a little bit here, but we're over-leveraged. So in practice, we really don't want to hire more workers. And we got into sort of the noisy effect of the brownout. Your ability to hire workers, you can hire up to a percentage of your private pops. Well, when your private pops are really small relative to the amount of workers you want to hire, you won't be able to hire enough every turn. So in this case, this city is currently recruiting 1,500 workers. So 15 pop units, based on the population. As you can see, it's about 10% of the private population become workers in every turn. Because of happiness problems, right? It's not 100% happiness. 222 have left employment, and 800 got recruited for the military. This is part of the reasons he's having a worker problem here. If we slightly improve happiness, we can't necessarily improve it by very much, but we don't necessarily need to improve it by very much. It's good enough. And we fix the fact that for some reason, we're recruiting workers to the military from workers instead of from the civilian pops here. His workers will stabilize. So we can fix that problem. That's the second problem, is basically he's over-leveraged the capital. He's over-leveraged a couple of the cities. Or very close to fully leveraged. So this is his biggest town. This is his. Well, might as well bounce from town to town. This is his biggest town. This is his capital. This is his second biggest town. He's over leveraged here. This is his third town. He's probably a little higher leverage than I would like to play, but he's not over leveraged here. So here's probably about right. Although he's struggling a little bit with happiness here, and because he's not over leveraged here, he probably can fix this one with remuneration, with payment. And he probably actually wants to fix it with payment. If he, at least in the short term, probably want to fix it with payment, which is easy. Again, it's going to be easier to do. You can play it a lot more in the short run with the wage slider than you can with the other sources of making zones happy. But he's not overleveraged here. He's overleveraged here. He's basically overleveraged here, or was in the previous turn, because he was constructing something that cost 600 workers. Or not 6,000. Yeah, it's or 5,000. 5,000 workers to build this. So 3 out of his 5 zones are overleveraged. So that's his second problem. It's a little bit of trying to do too much with too little. Again, he's winning this game, right? So there's an argument to be said he's being a little ambitious, over-ambitious in what he has. Although he's mostly winning via planet, right? So the thing he's struggling with when comparing himself to the AI is he doesn't necessarily have a lot of people. And he doesn't. That's legitimately his problem on this map, is he hasn't picked up enough people. Then we get to the third problem. And the third problem can be a little sneaky if you haven't dealt with it before. And to be fair, I have dealt with it worse than he has before. He has admin strain. He has 21% admin strain. Admin strain kicks off and on in levels of 10%. So 21% admin strain applies as if it's a 20% malice to production. So in the case of this industry here, he's losing 20% of his industry. Everything could be working perfectly fine. He'd lose 20% of his industry. I don't think that hits... Doesn't affect bureaucracy. So bureaucracy is special. It doesn't affect bureaucracy. Doesn't affect your logistics. But it affects his industry. It affects the power plants. Remember, he's in a brownout. So he doesn't have enough power. And his admin strain in the capital is affecting his power. Most importantly, affecting his primary source of power. All the power that went to the SHQ this turn came from his capital. His capital, suffering from 20% admin strain, he'd have 20% more power if we could fix the admin strain. His brownout would be 20% less severe if we could fix the admin strain. So that's something we're going to work on trying to fix, and showing how to fix that. The answer to that is probably going to be leveraging the fact that he has a couple zones here, so we can move the problem around. And then a third one, which is also a little bit insidious, he's trying to colonize as a way to increase his population, and that's kind of working, or at least increase his productivity, right? So each of these zones are existing for a reason. This one has a petrol well. This is where he's getting some of his oil from. This one has a metal mine. This one has a petrol well. This one has petrol. It has iron. Right? His cities don't exist for no reason. Right? He has population centers for a reason. That doesn't necessarily mean he's growing in population. And if you go and kind of do the math, and you go zone by zone, figure out where his population growth is coming from. We're getting 200 growth, natural growth here. We're getting 100 here. We're getting 100 here. In the capital, we are getting some natural growth. We got some Hexpark fertility hills, which are providing some natural growth. If you math it out, right now his entire country, the civilian and the public, both public and private workers, isn't growing because he's drafting it all. Every last net population he's getting, he's drafting. Now there are some some soldiers he's getting from hex perks, and that's probably the source he should be using for his soldiers at this point. And there are some colonists he's getting from hex perks. In fact, he's getting all his colonists from hex perks. All 300 colonists are coming from hex perks. He's got a Battle Dojo providing 200, and then zone recruiting is where he's getting the rest of his stuff from. And in fact, that's one of the reasons he's losing workers here, is because he's so over-leveraged. When he's putting out the call for recruiting more troops, he's actually recruiting his workers into the military. So he's losing 800 workers here, going to the military. And he has a reserve of more than a brigade. He probably has more people than he needs, right? If he wants to be growing his population, he's not necessarily growing very fast. There's about 1,000 population growth plus 200 soldiers plus 300 colonists, right? So if he's dumping all the colonists into the cities, letting his civilians stay civilians, he'd only be getting 200 soldiers, or he'd be a little bit stretched on the soldier front, but he'd be growing about 1,000 a turn. 1,300 a turn. And that would help him with trying to stabilize a lot of his worker problems, fix some of the over-leveraging here. So with the 4 sort of main problems sort of evaluated, those are the big things he's having. Let's start going through the process of trying to fix some of this. And other things we might look at is we might look at his logistics. His logistics aren't that bad. He's having a little bit of a problem down here. And to get supply out here, he's told that supply can't go down here. Although the problem he's having really is action points. So he's the truck asset that's supplying supply out here is about 103 points. And we're 200 something out. So without putting another asset in here, he's not going farther. Maybe he hasn't realized that. So I'm actually going to say we're going to come in here, and that's going to be a thing we fix. We're just going to turn that off. That's not helping the soldiers at the front. He's out of action points, not out of supply shipping. Same sort of logic down here. We're basically running off the end of the line. He's got a little bit more here if he needs to stretch it. He doesn't really need to, or they don't necessarily need to stretch it out here. Yeah, so up here, one of the things we can do, this you can see this is a Republican. This is a Republican that if we play our cards right, probably would be open to a victory pact. So we're going to start playing cards.
Affirmative.
Off their opinion. If we get them over 30, we can start to do some various deals with them. That also, if we make them happy, we can pull troops off this front. And then send them elsewhere. 7 units that. Independent artillery. Interesting. It is what it is. Okay. I'm not necessarily going to do much to his troops. Because really the problem he was having was not the troops. I'm moving them mostly to make sure that we're not risking them getting encircled or whatever. To deal with the local wildlife and stuff like that. Others are going to leave the troops mostly alone. And then obviously to do things to fix stuff, so we know we're over-leveraged over here, so we're going to actually pull back. Try to fix that at least temporarily. Again, he's not really struggling too much with supplies. Okay. And I think that's all we're going to do as far as troop movement. Now, one thing we're gonna do, partially to deal with the fact that we're in brownout, is he's making a lot of industry. At least in the short term, we don't need that much. And we know we're at least 200 power short. We may, in fact, be worse than that. It's hard to tell sometimes when you're in a brownout, right? So we know that the power grid can take 511 power. And that's at least 200 more than we are making. So one of the things we're going to do, at least temporarily, is we're actually going to turn his industry off. We're going to mothball Industry 3 here. And we're going to come over here. And there's another industry over here. We're going to mothball this one. If we can, we want to work the one in the capital. Like many assets, the assets get better and more efficient the higher the level. So you can see the first one employs 1,000 workers, plus a little bit of upkeep cost to make 50 IP. You go up a level. 3,000 workers makes 200. So instead of 1,000 to 50, it's about 1,000 to 66. Right, so it trends up. And again, about 600 more IP. So if we're going to be spending workers to work one of these, we probably want to work the one in the capital over the one in the expansion. Another place to save workers, if workers is really being an issue, is he has a very big bureaucracy. He's got Bureaucratic Office 3 in the capital. He's got High Command 3 here. He's got Bureaucratic Office 2 over here. Bureaucratic Office 1 over here. Bureaucratic Office 1 over here. The only place he doesn't have maxed out bureaucracy is in the newest expand. Now, he's got that for a reason. He has most of the orcs. So he's got the Supreme Command Council. He's got everyone except the Air Force. Right, so he's got a big bureaucracy he needs to support. This is one reason maybe they recommend not starting on a full council board. Is obviously with such a big bureaucracy, it's going to be hard to operate at all. So yeah, that's going to save us workers and power. That's 158 power there. That is... let me find the factory. Another 15 there. So that's actually not even enough to cover the brownout. That means we are going to save 170 power. We know we're 200 short. So that's actually not even enough savings. I'm going to have to turn some power off somewhere else to get the economy working properly. That's not going to be enough savings. I'm probably going to have to turn some of the bureaucracy down to save some power. In a temporary sense. Another minor problem he has. This mine's making me 0 metal. This mine's making 0 metal because there's no metal in the deposit. This is a perfectly positioned mine. And it's got enough capacity. So we're going to come in here. We're going to play a purple mine. So we can fix that problem.
Roger that.
We'll deal with his decisions. They want to decrease tax rate. I'm just going to tell them no. I'm not going to modify what if I can get away with not modifying things, we're not going to modify things. I don't know if they were going merit or democracy. I've definitely had scenarios where I'm trying to go merit and it ends up dragging me into democracy. We're going to say refuse for the moment, assuming they're going democracy. And we're going to deal with the democratic problems. We're going to mitigate this bad event to the best of our ability. We've apparently got spies in the guys up here. And... let's double check which is which on the regime. So we want either the trade faction or the National Industrial Group probably to be in power. We don't want the People's Front in power. Okay.
Affirmative.
We'll empower those guys. Do have the ability to ship some colonists down here for the moment. I'm going to show a solution that I have learned to deal with admin strain. Okay, we don't currently have that as a solution. Can't send. Although we just fixed the red block, so that should actually improve for the next turn. We can probably ship them next turn. Another thing is we've got a lot of troops in reserve. I tend to keep a buffer when I'm suffering sort of population problems like this. I tend to keep my buffer around 1 brigade, which is 5,500. I'm going to dump the surplus troops into the capital. You may choose to do this differently. I'm just going to dump them in the capital. That put 4,000 more people in the capital. That'll help a little bit with the wages in the capital. In the short term, we're also going to go location by location, trying to not necessarily make the workers happy by paying them, but make them so they're not losing happiness. Right, so in this case, we got -2 due to lack of remuneration, so we want to go in and raise their wages. So this is 0.13, this is 0.1, so we're going to go in and raise the wages. We're not going to raise the wages very much. We're just going to raise it like 3 points. Normally, I'd recommend having a colonist sign-up bonus if you're running colonists. And I'm, in this situation, going to say we're not going to recruit in the capital. At the moment, we need the civilians to be civilians, so we're going to turn the recruits off. If you're starting to get to the point where you're over-leveraged, the worker salaries, again, get paid into the private economy. So you can get away without public budget. So we're going to turn the public budget off as well. That saves us 40 credits, which effectively we're then turning around and paying more than that probably to the workers.
Order received.
And that should, in the long run, fix our -2 from the lack of remuneration. And we need to go around and basically probably do that in every zone. Right, so here we're at -3, so it's even more severe here. Yeah, more severe here.
Standing by. Affirmative.
Again, no public budget. Take you up to 20. At some point we might want the colonists.
Affirmative.
And there you're over 50 there, so they should mostly try not to move out. If you're not over-leveraged. That location. Again, we're overcharging a little bit. We're mostly going to try not to fix things, because in a lot of cases we're over-leveraged, right? We're not going to try fixing things with money. We're just going to try to stem the bleeding. So we're going to go meet the income.
Standing by. Affirmative. Affirmative.
And you can see a lot of these happiness, if we're paying them enough, is stable. We're not necessarily having a happiness problem. Although this is another reminder, I need to save a little bit more power. We turned the industry off, which is saving us the 170 power, so I need to save another 30 power off of something. The bureaucratic office is probably what's going to be. We're going to turn you off. And this is temporary, we're trying to solve the power problems. So we can solve the power problems, then we can turn a lot of this back on slowly. Otherwise we're going to have worker problems turning it back on. Yeah, we'll turn this one off as well. That should make us, at least on our initial evaluation, should put us power positive. Because I'll be saving over 200 power. Depends upon how bad the brownout is, whether or not that's going to fix things. That may be enough by itself to fix things. Here again, why are these guys unhappy? It's remuneration, because we're over-leveraged. So we're going to focus mostly on damage mitigation rather than making them happy via payment. On the other hand, a lot of what you do to get them happy otherwise, right, is quality of life and worker housing has been done. They've done what they need to do. They're just maybe not doing everything they need to do. Missing just that last little bit. And a lot of this worker salary stuff is also probably, hopefully, temporary. We can fix the pop growth and get the over leverage down. Then we can fix this or we can start to lower the wages again. Here the pay is actually fine. Yeah, pay here is fine. So we're not going to bother here for the moment. Is there any other cards we want to play? Oh, and we have lots of fate points. We have lots of fate points. So this is another way you can temporarily fix worker happiness. Is worker privileges. This moves population happiness to worker happiness. Is there any places I'm thinking we need that as an immediate problem solution? No. Was he going Fist? May have been going Fist. He's got a militia project. Yeah, there's a couple different ones in here. Some of these are really nice cards, like the Fat Merchant and stuff are actually really nice cards. Not necessarily solutions to our current problem. So he's got a bureaucratic push, which is not, again, the solution to what we've currently got problems. Oh, he's got some efficiency drives. So this is another way to get money. So if he's having money problems, we can use this to summon more money from the void. Let's get some spying out and about.
Acknowledged. Confirming orders.
And then if we can, some diplomacy. Don't have enough info on them. The spies may in fact help with that.
Acknowledged. Confirming orders.
First, we're going to sort of spy out the non-aligned territory.
Acknowledged. Confirming
Because the
orders.
difficulty to put spies in the non-aligned territory is really low. Whereas, so you can see, it's not necessarily very low for the aligned territory.
Acknowledged. Confirming orders. Acknowledged.
Okay, so that should give us enough info on them to get into contact with them. Yeah, we don't have enough spy the spy reports will help the following turns. Okay, if we want to do some more diplomacy, we might use the propaganda assistant, and presumably has some metal merit, yeah. So this provides charisma, and this provides charisma, which helps a lot with diplomacy. Go look at the cabinet for foreign affairs. You can see diplomacy and oratory use a lot with the diplomacy. Those are both charisma skills, so you can buff the charisma and that buffs it. One of the Twitch charters popping in such an early stream. Hope you're well. Yeah, this is sort of a pop-up stream. This is not one of the normally scheduled streams. We're evaluating Redditors' save and doing what we can to fix it. So I think we've done what we can for this turn. Let's cycle the turn and see if that starts to help fix the problem. What we're hoping to see is that the power is now positive. And we want to evaluate if the revenue changes we did to paying for workers has stabilized the worker happiness. There we go. We got 5 more new decisions.
Copy that.
What? No.
Roger that.
Affirmative.
And then we know we have an empty mine, so there's the empty mine. We're
Roger
gonna extend
that.
the empty mine. 31,000 more in that mine. Elysia is giving us a gift. Gonna say no. That lowered the opinion. Maybe I should have said yes. We'll see. Yeah, maybe I should have said yes. We'll throw money at them instead of them at us, ideally.
Affirmative.
There we go. That puts us up in the 50s. That'll open up a lot of the diplomacy, and we can get on with them. I'm surprised we don't have enough reconnaissance to interact with those guys. We'll work on that. And then let's start looking at our problems. So power is positive. Okay. So end of last round, we had 311 power. We had 616 delivered from the zones. Okay, so we've got some surplus power. We can start to turn some of the stuff back on. Although we're going to be careful about it. Capital-wise, capital is now at full employment. Capital is happy. Second city. Second city is at full employment and is happy. Third city, half employment. Not, well, reasonably happy. So happiness is increasing. And that's actually probably a stable rate of increase, so we're not going to be too worried about it. We're more concerned here that we're over leveraged. We could have everyone in the city working in the private sector, or in the public sector, and it wouldn't be enough. Which is a problem. here. We're not quite full employment. This is, I was initially thinking this maybe we'll return the bureaucracy back on, but no, we're gonna leave this bureaucracy off because, yeah, we can see we still don't have enough workers here. Again, the happiness it's not a happiness problem. It's a brownout. The brownout is what the problem was. So if we can solve the brownout, we can fix a lot of the problems here. And yeah, so we got the metal mine turned off here. We're gonna leave this metal mine actually turned off because one of the most reliable ways to fix admin strain is to sequester it to a city you don't care about. Right now, this is a level 1 city that at most has one level 1 mine we'd be penalizing. So we're just going to leave this mothballed. In the short term, we're going to use this as our sequestration for the admin strain. Eventually, you might want to move that someplace else to a zone that has nothing that gets affected by admin strain. So logistics and bureaucracy to a certain extent, but mainly logistics. So the main thing that's causing admin strain in the capital are things that are far away from the capital, like the supply base. This supply base requires 900 workers. So if we delegate that supply base to this city, that will reduce admin strain. This supply base can't be affected by admin strain. Logistics is unaffected, but that will help improve the metal mines. And in fact, there's an argument that this metal mine is causing admin strain. So there's an argument we actually want to not use that mine because we're going to have this one working. This one doesn't cause admin strain, for example. We're going to work on the logistics assets first, and then we might work on mines later. So we're going to delegate you to this city, ZOV. Okay. Delegate ZOV. Delegate ZOV. I think those are the assets that are the farthest out. Oh, no. The one over there. Delegate ZOV. That's actually going to be all our colonists, because the way we're going to make sure this place has enough workers to work those jobs is we're going to dump colonists in as workers.
Affirmative.
In fact, I got 700 more workers. I don't think we got enough. In fact, we probably want some private workers, so we'll let the 200 or so get fired to work the private sector. That'll be fine. And yeah, so a lot of these zones you can see we're pretty much just immediately fixed, at least from a happiness and worker happiness problem, just by solving a little bit of pay and the brownout. I'm going to let another turn pass before we start turning things back on, although that's partially because a lot of the places where we'd want to be turning things on, we're only just now getting to full employment. Let's not immediately basically do the exact same thing that the brownout would have caused. We're going to try to fix the admin strain as well. So majors. We bribed the one that we're in physical contact with. Do we have enough info on you? No, not yet. Not yet. Let's go jump to the spies again.
Acknowledged. Confirming
Get
orders.
some spies in there.
Acknowledged.
Spies in
Confirming
there. Yeah, and there's definitely some peripheral cards or some fake cards in here we could potentially use, but they'd be one-off and wouldn't necessarily work in all the scenarios. And yeah, at least in the temporary turn, the pay changes we've done has done everything we need to as far as improving happiness. Here we have a little bit of a low qual effect kicking in. I could technically fix that a little bit by moving happiness from the private sector, but we'll just roll as is for the moment. Anyway, he has enough troops for deployment. Cycle the turn. Let's see. One of the things we're going to be looking to see is if this starts to fix the admin strain. It should start to fix the admin strain. Now, granted, it's going to be fixing the admin strain by moving where it is, right? So you basically need to sacrifice production in one of your cities to do this, which is why right now we're shipping it all to a city that has no production. So we're going to lose like 40% production in a city that has 0 production. That's fine. That's not a problem. We just want to get it away from the capital because the capital is where most of the power is being made. If we were to turn the industry back on, it would be where most of the industry is being made. It's where most of the metal is being made. So much is going to be improved just by moving the admin strain out of the capital. 118 is the turn here in their game. They're up on 6 decisions. Again, I'm not focusing too much on optimizing these decisions. We're just rolling with them.
Order received.
Say yes there. You want recon to increase. We're going to play with the recon anyway, so that's fine. I'm not going to expand his organization because it's already a little big. Yeah, that's fine. It's a little bit more extreme than I would probably run. Interior Council. He was complaining that he was actually having trouble trying to find taxation cards in the Reddit. So, don't want to actually set anything to 1. We'll turn the taxation up a little bit so he actually gets some. Something more like that.
Roger that.
And we're being praised. We'll pay some extra money to get bonus opinion with them.
Affirmative.
And now these guys are up to friendly. So these guys are at the point where we can start moving towards victory pact with them. Which is one of the easiest ways you could basically at this point win. It's an embassy next. I think it's embassy next. Yeah, there we go. Got a friendship pact. So the thing that comes after friendship pact is victory pact. Not sure. He doesn't have any cards of that version in his storage at the moment. But yeah, we should see admin strains up here. So we've already got 10% admin strain here. And we can see that it's beginning to decline here. We're already down to 20%. It is a slow drift. It's not immediate. So it shouldn't have actually affected any yields yet because it goes in steps of 20, or it goes in steps of 10. So we haven't dropped below 20 yet, so it hasn't dropped below 20 yet. We're still at 20. But we're moving in the right direction. Not all the assets in here that are far away. So your factory, you're in the city, you're in the city, your factory, which means you're in the city, you're in the city, you're in the city, 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 obviously. Fuel depots in the city. Agri doom is close enough by it shouldn't be providing, it should be helping, not hurting. Should be helping, not hurting. So there's maybe an argument that we want to shuffle this mine off somewhere because it's probably causing admin strain. It's more than 6 hexes away. That would be 3, that would be 6. So anything past here is going to be providing admin strain based on distance past 6. So this is pretty bad from an admin strain standpoint. I'm surprised we're not making oh no, we're making a lot of metal. Right, so this mine, now that we made this mine work again, it's making 303 metal. That's probably worth enough that we don't need this mine to be working. What I might do is I might accept this mine's not going to be efficient and delegate it down to the zone as well, as a way to temporarily free up the admin strain from the capital. Again, we're losing so much stuff. We're losing 20% of the stuff. Granted, I've been terrible in the past. I've run the admin strain up in the capital up to 60%. and wondering why I'm not getting stuff out of my capital. So this is not a problem unique to the person. It is a problem that I have done before. And I've done worse before. But yeah, 20% of all the goods being in the capital. Most notably in this case is power. Right, so that's one of the reasons he was brown out. So we got about 135 surplus power we can start using to turn things back on if we're careful. So we're up to full employment here. We're going to start very slowly turning things on, like the beer cutting assets back on. So we don't brown out again, and so that we don't have too many problems from people hiring back up again. But yeah, you can see in pretty much everywhere except this city, we've already solved the employment situation. There's enough public workers. The public workers aren't quitting en masse. In here, we're firing them because we just moved 2,700 jobs out of the city. They're not being fired. They're not quitting. So we fixed the work happiness. So the main problem that the Redditor was having problems with, we fixed in a couple turns. Primarily by fixing the brownout and just very light touch on the wages. Yeah, I suppose technically I think we're running treasury deficit. 1,000 money out the door. Right now he's got such a large bureaucracy, and in particular has Sun Nation. It's up here. He has some efficiency drives.
Roger that.
There, one card. We spent 29 public power. We got more money than the country spent in a turn. We now have open contact with the recon on these guys, so we can open contact to guarantee that we have contact with them in the future. Is this the other one? This was the other one. Can open contact with them to guarantee we have access to them in the future. And I think that's the 3... 1, 2, 3... Yeah, so this is a game where he can negotiate a victory back to the top the next 2 and win. Right, so we might... It depends on how long I take to fix the admin problem. We might intentionally win this game. Because just to show how close the Redditor here is actually winning. Like, he's doing real good. And struggling with trying to do too much with too little is really their problem. So we're just going to show that they can win from that, or maybe potentially show they can win from that state, and show fixing the admin strain. So we fixed the brownout. The brownout's fixed. We're going to have to be a little gentle with restarting the power plants, so we don't immediately recause the brownout. With a light touch, we fix the wages so that their workers are stable, if not growing in happiness. If we're careful and we start to deal with the over-leveraging of the of the civilian population and the overdrafting, which we've fixed the overdrafting at this point, we just need to be patient with that. We can potentially even start to lower the worker wages. But the first step to lowering the worker wages is lowering the private wages. It's around 119. We got 2 decisions. We did hit that recon. See, I was already knowing we're going to do some more recon. Was he running Mind? Looks like he's running Mind. If he's not running Mind, he's screwed up the way I've done sometimes. We'll reverse the decision, get some Mind. We're going to accept opening the embassy. That was something we're actually going to ask from them. We're hiring up. City isn't shrinking. That's good to see. Yes, there's some migration. We're not going to worry too much about migration as long as the worker population stays stable. We're happy. And we did have some quit here, although this is cancellation of jobs. Cancellation of jobs is fine. What we don't want them doing is we don't want them quitting, which is, again, is maintaining happiness. And even here, they're leaving because of cancellation of jobs, because of lack of remuneration, because we've got so many jobs here now that the income's starting to come up. So we got to come in here. This is something we're going to have to review every once in a while, which is just slightly adjusting the pay.
Affirmative.
That should remove that -1. The qual is bad here. So this is actually a zone where we may be very tempted to try to keep them happy with remuneration, because we've got no quality of life buildings here. And I say tempted because at the same time we are over-leveraged here. There is more government workers than civilian workers. So it's going to be hard to do that in the long run. Oop, we're a little bottlenecked over here. I'm going to modify the traffic things. We're not going to say all there. We're going to say like 80% there. 90% there. Like 80% there. We'll let some go down that way. Surprised it was being filtered at all, apparently. And yeah, let's see. What's the admin strain in the capital? Admin strain's dropped below 20%. So if we go look at the buildings in the capital that are producing, we now only have a minus 10% strain penalty. So we're getting 10% more power. And that was just dropping below 20%. And this is immediately why I'm not rushing to move this one, right? Because if we can get the strain below 10 without transferring this asset, then we're golden. That's all we needed. Because it goes in steps of 10. Now, this is making the strain in this zone terrible. But right now, this zone makes nothing. So, minus 10% of nothing is nothing. How goes the hiring up? Did successfully hire up. Did successfully hire up. And this is with us turning the assets on slowly and carefully. We lost 300 power. In fact, I think we got more power that turn. So we can turn things up again. Turn you up to 50. You're going to turn you up to 50. This is the bureaucratic offices also don't necessarily consume a bunch of power. Right, so this only consumes 10. The big thing was the industry when we were in the brownout, because that was a bigger power consumer. And then we can do some diplomacy cards. No, non-aggression pact. I need to first do embassies everywhere we don't have an embassy. Already got an embassy. Yeah, so embassy with you. Then we do non-aggression pacts.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
And then you would do friendship pacts, and then you would do victory pact. And again, he only needs 2 victory pacts and he wins from this state. And we're maybe not going to sit around long enough to get victory pacts to do that, but they're at the point where they probably pretty easily win. We're just going to show fixing the admin strain here, and maybe call it if we don't have victory packs at that point. Now, one thing you could do from this state, if you didn't want to do victory packs, but you still wanted to play vaguely friendly with the other majors, is you could try to improve the quality of life in all your cities, and then do freedom of movement pacts with them, so their civilians can migrate to you. You're going to probably be a little bit more on the ball keeping your places happy than the AI probably will be, which means you could literally pull and leech the population out of them. We're not going to do that here because it can be a bit slow and tedious. But that's one way to fix with the sort of overdrafting, over-leveraging the population, if you're in a sort of vaguely peaceful game. Round 120, we killed some of the wildlife, and we got 3 decisions. We're arguably mines. We don't mind losing a little bit of heart. We'll accept that.
Yes, sir.
We're neither fists, or at least at this point, no longer fists.
Order
I'm
received.
gonna piss a bunch of people off a little bit, but that's fine. And again, slow, steady. We're having quality of life issues here. We're having happiness issues. And in this case, we reached the point where this is one of the reasons you don't necessarily want to over-leverage a city. 0 to 8. I think the max we can raise the worker wages is to 25. Oh no, we can go a little bit higher. We can go. Oh, it's up to 30. So we're getting really close to the point where we lose that lever, right? That lever goes away if income goes over 30. We can no longer raise wages to mitigate remuneration. So I don't want to put any more jobs here, let's say. Right, and maybe might even want to go so far as to start tearing down and removing these organic furnaces. I'm not going to do that right now, but that would be one way to save up some workers. He's even got one of them mothballed, right? So whenever one of these actually runs out, we're probably not going to bother upgrading them. They're probably better off with solar. Well, for the workers, they're better off with solar, right? This is 2,000 workers. This is 1.3. And it's making the same, if not more power. So it's probably time to transition away from organic furnaces to solar. And they've already kind of done that, and that's one of the reasons we're not super worried as we're slowly working our way out of this burnout. Oh. Gotta actually activate it first. Activate 50%. Sorry about that. Gotta press the right buttons, otherwise it doesn't work. So yeah, we'll have that start coming back off the line. We've got power surplus, so that shouldn't be a problem as long as we don't try to hire too quickly. What's the admin strain looking in the capital? 15%. So it's still dropping. We're going to keep watching it. If we get it below 10%, we won't transfer the zone. If we can't do that, we'll transfer the zone. And then did I do the diplomacy this turn with the neighbors?
Affirmative.
No.
Affirmative.
And yeah, those two, the two we just did friendship pacts with, if he could get a victory pact with them, with both of them, he wins. That's how close to victory they are. No, and you can see how much I'm ignoring the borders. They don't need to expand anymore. Fix their problems, get the victory pact cards, and they could win if they wanted to. So we're just going through the motions on showing you how you can fix admin strain. We showed basically how to fix the brownout, which is get consumption below production. We discussed overleveraging. Overleveraging is something I occasionally do. You just try not to do it everywhere. And it's really hard to fix once you've done it. We're working on the admin strain and the overdrafting. We've done what we can to fix the overdrafting. It's just a shame that the pop growth in this game is a bit slow. It's definitely something the AI sometimes struggles with. I've run a game where the AI started to draft themselves into non-existence because of how small the population growth is in this game. Round 121, we got 8 decisions. The decisions probably don't matter. They are trying to go government, so we will take the government maximally. They're going government, so we'll politely refuse. About 10% is what I run on the foreign affairs, so that's probably fine. Not quite the balance I do, but that's fine. Don't need to nitpick that. Soldiers get happier, so we keep them in supply, that's fine. And they're running government. Honestly, not running hearts. We just do what's gonna not piss people off the most. Probably actually want to do commerce down, because harassing government is not super great.
Yes. Understood.
We're probably going to fail this roll.
Affirmative.
Workers are harassed. Failure, which causes unrest in the zone. Work happiness to decrease. So this is one of the bad events. And which zone was this? This was the one we're delegating all the people to, of course. Okay, there's stuff we can do. He has the cards to deal with this.
Affirmative.
There we go. Emergency situation dealt with. We'll also want to lower the unrest. This should lower the unrest. 5's fine. And again, that's a bad event. You won't necessarily always have the ability to mitigate it, but we in this situation had the ability to mitigate it, so we did. 13%. Yeah, so it's still trending down. Give it like two more turns and we'll be fine. So it was able to adequately hire up. So as long as we do it like 25% a turn, we shouldn't have an employee shortage in that zone. We might have a little bit more of one here. Although, even here, it's hiring up fine. So we'll do another 25% tick. Slowly recover from the brownout. And what we're mainly looking to watch for is loss due to storage. We want loss due to storage to always be some number with power. Because the stockpile max on it is so low. Yeah, because the stockpile on it is so low. In fact, we may be in a situation where we can't avoid brownouts because the stockpile cap is lower than what we might want to ship zone to zone. That can happen, and it's a little annoying when it does. And at this point, if you were microing the game a bit more, you see this whole white border, which we got on the major with a bunch of troops on it. Yeah, we're at peace with that major. We could just pull those troops off. And it's a Republican who's probably willing to do friendship pact, or has done friendship pacts and is probably willing to do victory pact with us. They're not going to declare war on us as long as we're careful at our diplomacy. Round 122, we have 2 decisions, which probably don't matter. You want the victory points to go up. We'll say yes to that. Doesn't really matter. Major diplomacy, that's probably fine. We don't even see any minors on this map. And again, firing up. No immediate concerns on the power. Again, the big power consumer is the factories, which we're not turning back on yet. We're working first on getting the bureaucratic points up because if we're not spending the industry, we don't need to stockpile more industry, right? We're getting industry from raw people. Turn you up some more. Turn you up some more. Because you hired up fine. Yep. Admin strain continues to go down. Yeah, no luck yet as of yet to try to get a victory pact, which is a little bit RNG. The win here, they need to, so we're not going to sit around waiting for it. But again, they probably are at a state where they could easily win. Start opening up trade with the neighbors.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
And we're holding on to colonists here because one thing, again, we can do to mitigate the strain on the main capital zone is to throw this into this zone. But it looks like we don't need to. And again, this is sequestering the admin strain, right? We're moving the strain off of an important city to an unimportant city. And you can see the strain in the unimportant city is far worse. But that's fine. This city makes nothing that's affected with admin strain because we don't have the middle mine running right now. What you might want to do in the long run is technically make probably just a truck hub station city, which is just the truck hub. That then their sole job is to run things like supply bases around the map and other truck stations, right? Because logistical assets aren't affected by admin strain, so these don't suffer from the admin strain. The metal mine would. If we had a truck station, it wouldn't. The apartments aren't affected, so you can sort of sequester your admin strain to places that don't care about it. But yeah, we'll cycle the turn. We'll see if the admin strain's gone. I think we can get the full bureaucracy going again without any problems. We'd have to rejig the power a little bit, I think, to bring the industry back online. But again, they're at the point where they can win, right? So yes, there's things we can do to get all the existing assets back online, but some of them probably should just get torn out, right? The organic furnaces should probably go. They're obsolete in comparison to the solar. And now that we've dealt with a lot of that solar power, or with the admin strain, if everything goes according to plan, when we get around to their next turn here, they're going to be making 20% more power than they were before. Almost all their workers are happy again. We do have to watch it because there's going to be a trend towards them being unhappy from the overleveraging raising the wages. But as long as we don't over respond to that, then it should be fine. UN democracy go up. That's probably happening. So we'll accept zone. Eh, 50-50. We'll take the 50. There we go. Little bit of government. We're getting praised. We'll go personally, which is an auto success at the cost of much political power. We're demanding the release of a spy. We like democracy. We like mine. We'll accept their offer. Slowly approaching full employment here. We are full employment here, and probably would be if we were to expand or power the bureaucracy back up to full. Same here, probably would be if we powered the bureaucracy back up to full. They're a little unhappy here. Again, because we haven't built it in the quality of life buildings. That's maybe something we'd strive to do. In fact, something we should probably strive to do if you were to keep playing the save.
Affirmative.
Because again, we're over more private. Well, actually, in here we got more public than private, so the wages had started to stabilize and come back down. We're not going to rush to fix that right now. Again, most of the zones are happy. 88's fine enough. Yeah, in this case, this is a scenario where if we need to raise happiness, we need to do it by, you can see, or under order and remuneration. If we needed more happiness, the solution would be to raise the wages. But we're stable with happiness here, so we're just going to coast at this. This is fine. The house is not spotless, but the house is working. And we did successfully drop below 10% admin strain, so we can show off that now that we're below 10% admin strain, there is no admin strain malice. All we had to do is sequester the supply bases off into a different city. And the capital is now happy. So we get 20% more everything. That's 20% more power, which is helping us a lot with the power, which probably means as long as we're careful as we turn the industry back on, we could run the main industry in the capital because we have the power for it. And in fact, we're power surplus in the capital, so the capital is definitely the place where we just, as long as we're careful, we just turn the industry back on, and we'd be golden, we'd be Gucci. Yeah, we're at the point where to win, you're just looking for 2 victory packs. The challenge here would be if you didn't want to win via diplomacy, because we are looking at every major that you probably need to fight has more people than you, right? So you're going to have an uphill battle in a quantity versus quality approach. Sorry, there's a phone call. I might try to take the time to edit that out of the YouTube video. But yeah, you'd be working in an uphill battle where you'd be sort of doing quantity versus quality, because the AI is going to use their people, right? So they're going to be throwing masses of troops at you. Of course, the world starts ringing us as I'm trying to do the outro of the video. At this point, yeah, so we fixed the main problems. The big problems, the ones that were really making everything unstable, was the brownout situation. We fixed the brownout situation by realizing there was one, and getting power consumption below power supply, so we had surplus power, and then fixing the admin strain problem. So the admin strain was reducing, and that's maybe something that wasn't necessarily obvious to someone who doesn't work with admin strain, was reducing his power production by 20%. So he has 20% more power now than at the beginning of this recording. because we fixed the admin strain. Which probably at this point means if he had everything running, he wouldn't have a brownout situation. There's a little bit more process to slowly, gently turn everything back on. And then it's just carefully watching population happiness. We don't really want to raise wages, but everything here is vaguely happy. Oops. Vaguely happy if we actually pay the wages. This is something else you have to pay attention to, right? Because we're running a pretty big deficit. But we have efficiency drives, right? So we have ways to generate money out of the void. If I was paying a little more attention, I would have just kept the money, probably sitting around 10,000.
Roger
right?
that. Roger that.
There we go, budget money. That's where the minus 14% comes out from there. But yeah, so, and the minus 20 here is, again, that's wages. Pay your workers' wages. And then they're happy. And yeah, so that should hire up properly. And then the other way, you saw we turned things down. If really that pay becomes a problem because the bureaucratic efficiency cards don't pop up anymore, for whatever reason. Which I'm actually kind of surprised. I think that's an enforcement card normally. Yeah, so at some point he had enforcement high enough. He had efficiency goals, efficiency drive. So maybe he wants to go back towards enforcement, because that would solve a bunch of his money problems in the long run. But for the moment, he's stable. You'd have to be a little bit careful on the funds. Although metal's very expensive. He's making lots of metal, right? If we wanted 4,000. Oh, yeah, we could generate the entire treasury by selling off less than 200 metal. That wouldn't necessarily be a sustainable solution to that, but yeah. We've basically shown the big problem here was he was in a brownout. A long-term problem is the fact that he was overdrafting and over-leveraged. And those things are slow to fix. And the other one was admin strain. So we're making 20% more stuff from the capital. And that was the three supply bases. And if he wanted to take over more territory, he probably needs to build more supply bases, more truck hubs and stuff. And that process of delegating them to a different place is how you fix that in the long run. So I hope if you've watched this far, you found this informative and have enjoyed the watch. I'm not going to sit around long enough to pull the Victory Pact cards, but this is definitely a scenario. We've got friendship pacts with number 2, number 3. We technically need an aggression pact to that one, but we could work towards having it number 4. And if he does a non-aggression pact with 2 and 3, that makes him win. Or 3, 4, and 5 makes him win. And they're all Republican, they're all willing to accept electorate pacts. He can win from this state, right? All he has to do is keep his score higher than everyone else's, and he can win through diplomacy. So yeah, so I basically didn't need to do anything to win the game. I've just shown how to fix the sort of the 3 to 4 main problems that he had, and obviously explain that he's playing with Republicans and he can negotiate a victory pact. So with that, I hope you've all enjoyed. If you're watching, watched all this way through. If you're watching this on Twitch, we are going to be streaming later tonight after dinner. So I'm streaming before dinner here, because this is a regularly scheduled stream. We are going to be playing Whiskerwood later tonight. If you're watching this on YouTube, the first couple parts of Whiskerwood are probably already uploaded. Actually, no, they won't be already uploaded, because this will go up as soon as I've got it edited. Will be coming up in the future, so you can expect there to be more of that coming up. If you're tuning in because you like Shadow Empire content, we will be streaming the ongoing game of Shadow Empire again in 3 days. So not tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow, but the day after that. I do stream something every night, but what we're streaming changes. I usually try to do a 4-game, 4-night, 4-part stream schedule where I swap between 4 different games. So I stream this live to Twitch under the username WillCole, and then I will be uploading this to YouTube under the username WillCole100. So with that, wish you all the best of luck and a good time, Catch you all in the next one, and bye for now.